Welcome to Rock and Recovery. I'm your host, Jace. Today's special guest is John Borden. I'm hoping I'm saying that right.
Yes,
He's
sir.
the founder of Get Psyched Fitness. I'm hoping I'm saying that right too. I could be totally off, but that's what it says in your little thingy down there. So that's what I'm going to read it off as. You know,
Nailed it, brother.
thank you for being on the show, John. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And I see the Tampa Bay hat. Tampa Bay. But thank you for taking time out of your day and just being on here.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here, Jay. It's a wild road that life brings us down, and so many twists and turns. And really happy to share my story with your listeners, and hope that people might be able to resonate and gain strength from it.
One of the things I like to say is all of our stories will be somebody else's survival guide in the future. And not only that, it brings hope. And hope, my acronym for hope is hold on, pain ends. If you're struggling and if you're struggling with addiction, if you're struggling with mental health, just hold on because you know what? There's help. You're not alone. The pain will end.
I love that, man. I really like that.
So I'll let you just jump on in and I'm sure I'll have some questions for you and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, brother. So you want to know about rock bottom?
Yeah, the way you grew up. How'd you grow up? What led you to addiction? What led you to get into addiction? Because that's the main thing. I mean, none of us start out wanting to be an addict.
Yeah.
Addiction is more like a side effect of whatever we're going through.
I mean, that's exactly it, man. There's so many things, right? And you don't want to put blame anywhere, make anybody feel like they're responsible for what you went through. Addiction's a familial thing for a large number of us. And, it certainly was for me. My dad, my brother both had really bad problems with drinking, drinking with my father, drinking and other things with my brother, who was 12 years older than me. But really what it came down to is that I grew up in a town where there were not many kids my age. I was pretty isolated, which is rare living in New Jersey, where it's the most densely populated state in the country. But yeah, there were no other kids my age. The closest was like 3-4 years older, younger than me, on either side, on my block and the surrounding neighborhood. So I grew up like being really slow on the social uptake and like not really fitting in a lot as a kid. And when I got to high school and found alcohol and found that, hey, this is something that could loosen me up and make me feel like I fit in, it kind of started as a spiral from there. I got to college, found that drinking could make me popular enough to be fucking president of my fraternity. So went down that route and, had this like very deep desire to succeed and be admonished by people and feel like people, cared about me because of the things that I did and yada, yada, yada. But really it was just a mask for a deep lack of self-confidence that had plagued me my whole life. And, eventually that turned into drinking and cocaine, and, it turned into a habit that was an everyday type of thing. It didn't matter if I was on the job. It didn't matter if I was, unemployed. It didn't matter if I was yada, 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 yada. I was always drinking, always doing coke. And it was just something that followed me until I really reached what I consider my rock bottom. And that's that, I had moved, I had moved from, let me back up. I come out of college. I'm working for Enterprise Rent a Car. I'm doing that job for 3.5 years. I'm the top performer at my job, despite, getting drunk on the job and stuff like that. Right. But I'm still number one at my position month after month after month. And eventually my office gets broken into and robbed, and I get fired. And that started me on a really deep spiral where I went from, having a successful job, having a relationship, having a 1-bedroom apartment that I was able to pay for by myself, being able to take my girl on vacations, yada, 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 to losing that identity, losing the income, losing the status, and so on and so forth. COVID hit shortly after that. My girlfriend and I broke up shortly after that. I moved to Connecticut, where I knew nobody, and was kind of in this position where I was working all the time, doing something that was really, I really felt was put beneath me. And I had the realization that I was going to need to pull basically all-nighters for the foreseeable future. And I just, absolutely lost my mind, just screaming out of frustration. And, questioning how I got to that point in my life. And, I started to look for different jobs around the area. Eventually, I thought I was closing in on one. I had a 3-hour long interview, felt really good about it, went out to a bar and sat down to eat dinner at a restaurant that didn't have a drive-through for the first time in 3 months. And I talked to a guy who helped to completely shift my perspective on life. He basically told me after 30 minutes of getting to know each other, dude, everything that you're telling me about, you getting fired from this job, you moving up to Connecticut, the girlfriend leaving you, yada, yada, yada. You are in this position because of yourself. Like, there's nobody else to blame but you. And until you take responsibility for your own life, nothing's going to change for you. And I didn't really internalize that to the level that I have now at that point. What I got out of that was move. If you don't like where you're living here in Connecticut, move. And so I took that piece of advice, and I ended up moving to Tampa shortly after that, getting a work from home job and coming down to Tampa. But those habits still were with me. I was still drinking regularly, up until the sunrise, and not treating my body well, not doing anything for not doing anything really for myself, not doing anything for others, just being, completely self-centered, like only focused on the present now kind of person, rather than, understanding how much opportunity there was to life. And then in October of 2022, I had an experience with psilocybin mushrooms that just completely it changed how I saw myself, changed how I saw the world around me, and allowed me the opportunity to decide to live my life in a better way moving forward. And that became the
Your mindset is your reality.
Yep, that became my book. And from that point forward, I've chosen to live my life in a way that has done a lot of really good for myself and the community that I'm part of. And so I'm just hyper grateful that I've had the experience that I've had. I've hit the rock bottoms that I've had, and I've had the realizations that I've had that have allowed me to do things like like this race that I did this weekend. I'll get this a little bit closer to the camera so you can see that
100-mile endurance run.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Jeez, 100 miles? I don't even like driving 100 miles, but run 100 miles?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that was my Saturday.
Wow, that's freaking crazy. So tell me more about your experience with the psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah,
I know that's starting to become a more popular form of delving into your past and treatment. So I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah, man. Well, so there's 70,000 words written on it, and I can talk all day about the different aspects of what it did to help me, analyze myself and choose the life that I wanted to live for myself. But really, it's a beautiful experience when you allow it to be a beautiful experience. A lot of people hear about, magic mushrooms or LSD or whatever it is, and they're like, oh, I don't want to have a bad trip. I don't want to lose control of myself. And that's like the furthest away from the truth and what those things are actually like, way to think about it. It allows you to look at yourself as if you're a character in a TV show. And when you're watching a character in a TV show, and you can see that the girl really likes the guy, and you're just shouting at the guy, go kiss the damn girl, or the monster
or behind you.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
horror movies behind you. Don't go into that room. Why are you going into the barn with all the murder tools?
You're able to have that conversation with yourself, so it's no longer, you watching yourself on a TV screen and not able to do anything about it. It's you're watching that character, and you're able to say, hey, dummy, yeah, check under the bed, right? Like, do whatever it is that you've been telling yourself that you need to do for forever and ever and ever, that you have just kept putting off. And once you're finally granted that clarity, whether that's, hey, just stop using Coke. Oh yeah, I can just stop using Coke. Oh yeah, that's crazy. I don't have to get blackout drunk. Oh, I don't have to get blackout drunk. It's crazy what happens when you can just realize that, right? But that makes it sound way too simple, and it really is, because there's a lot of internal work that needs to be done, right? I mean, there are going to be realizations that come to you, and it's your job to question why those things are coming up, right? What is it that you're what that you need to learn from whatever it is that's coming to your consciousness that's premeditated by the psilocybin mushrooms. And if you're able to follow those threads well, and I pride myself on having been able to follow those threads really well, and it's led me down the paths that I've found myself in. It can create really, really beautiful results. You just have to not be scared. You not have to not protect your ego, protect the stories that you've told yourself about who you are and why you're in the position that you're in, and just be open to accepting whatever it is that the medicine's going to show you.
So you basically use the medication. So it's like another form of mat. Is it a lifelong thing, or is it just a treatment thing? Or
I mean, for most people, it's a one session thing. Me personally, I've made it into something that supports me on an ongoing role in my life in various different ways. And, a lot of people, when they hear about my story, they'll ask, oh, so like, how much do you use it now? And, they kind of assume, oh, so you traded alcohol for, no, it's not like that, because they don't operate in the same way whatsoever. It's not like you take, if you want to go out and socialize, you have a couple of drinks and you feel like more calm, right? It's not like that. It's not like you can just take a gram of mushrooms and like automatically be in a better mental space. It requires you to actually sit with and think through and make the changes for you to have that positive type of experience, so it's not like trading one for the other by any means. And even if it were, it's much much better on your body, your mind, so on and so forth. But yeah, it's something that I do on an ongoing basis, and I actually do during my races and things like that. It's like an enhanced form of meditation. It allows you to go into your mind and dictate the way that your foot falls, and the way that your knees distribute your weight, and the way that your hips are bearing load, and all the little
so it's
things.
more awareness of your body, your mind, your
More
thoughts.
awareness of your body. Yep, more awareness of your body, more aware of your thought patterns, more aware of the way you interact with people, more aware of emotions that other people are feeling, more aware of your own emotions. It's a really, really beautiful thing, and if you can exist in that state of mind in a good way, it allows you to really understand a lot about life and a lot about what's going on around you.
So I know I've heard before, mushrooms been around for years,
Mhm.
and even when I was in my active forms of addiction, I tried them, hey, who has, well, I can't say
Mhm.
who hasn't, but there's probably a lot of people that haven't. But in addiction, when you're addicted to drugs, you kind of just transfer them from one to another. There's some that you might have tried, some that you're scared of, whatever. But I've
Mhm.
heard of people having bad trips. Is that possible on psilocybin?
Yeah, man. And that's kind of what I was touching on there for a second, is that like people are scared of bad trips, but really those are the ones that are going to be the best for you, because a bad trip typically comes to somebody who has a lot of healing to do. And when you have a lot of healing to do, there's a lot of things that come up that the psilocybin shows you, hey, this is something that you really need to look at, that you really need to work on. And that can be a really powerfully emotional experience for people if they're not ready for it. And so that's where the bad trips really come down to, is people going into something not really understanding what the experience is going to be like. They think, oh, I'm just going to eat mushrooms and see some funky colors. No, 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 no. This is an intense, emotionally powerful experience, and you have to be ready for it. And so that's where the bad trip comes down to, is people not being prepared for what they're going to experience and trying to run away from whatever it is that they are experiencing rather than embracing it.
See, I kind of associate psilocybin with acid. It
Hmm.
was basically the natural or more natural form of ripping your balls off. That's what we
Hmm.
used to do on acid.
Hmm.
See the pretty tracers and the lights and all this other stuff, that some scary shit too. On acid anyway. Is it
Hmm.
safer than that form, or is it just a less powerful form? Is it kind of like the peyote, or the natives peyote, or what?
Yeah, well, I mean, so there are two different chemicals, right? I mean, you have LSD, lysergic acid, diethylamide, and then you have psilocybin and psilocin, the derivatives of magic mushrooms. And so they operate in the brain in two different ways, though they are a little bit similar. Both have been studied heavily for their ability to help people with addiction, to help people with mental health problems, to help people with dementia and PTSD and, you know, cancer and so on and so forth. Like the list is really growing to an astronomical level of the things that the conditions that these things have shown to help with. And it really all comes down to your mind. It comes down to being able to understand your mind, understand your body, and be able to dictate that. And there's a really powerful thing that I feel like I've discovered with them, is that it really does allow you to dictate your reality in a really beautiful way. And it sounds a little bit insane, and if you're not really engrossed in what these things have the potential to do. But I like to believe that I'm a walking billboard for the positive effects of psilocybin and LSD, because I also do use LSD as well pretty regularly. I microdose that on, probably a weekly or maybe twice a week kind of basis.
And that in its form has stopped you. So one day you just did the psilocybin, and all of a sudden you just told yourself to stop drinking, stop freaking using Coke, and it worked.
Yeah, well, so I tried psilocybin one time when I was 18. I had a bad trip. It was the day after I quit playing baseball. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I cried for hours and saw a childhood version of myself staring back at me, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I didn't do psilocybin again for 11 years after that point. I had done LSD once a year after that experience, and then probably another 10 times or so in the time between. Uh,
Threatening to commit a crime, so you might want to go and delete that real fast.
all good. I hear something in the background.
Oh no, that was me. And then somebody tried to call me, and I ended it.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. So yeah. So yeah. No, it wasn't like I just tried psilocybin. It was just like magic, right? But here's what happened is that I'd gone through. I'd realized that I'd had a problem with alcohol and cocaine back in 2020.
Yeah.
But when I realized that, I didn't know how to stop. I tried using pot to stop drinking, and that helped curb my drinking a lot. Up until that point, I wasn't able to fall asleep without a drink. But once I started smoking, I could smoke and fall asleep, and then my sleep was more restful. I didn't wake up with any sort of type of hangover. It wasn't like I was consuming calories, so my stomach was feeling better. So it had a lot of positive effects from that standpoint, but it didn't help me like actually stop, right? And especially once the coke was involved, like, I just couldn't actually stop. And that lasted for essentially 2 years. When I found psilocybin, the first time that I tried it was October 9th of 2022. And when I did, I just cried for like 4 hours straight. It was a very small dose. It was a half-gram dose. And I just cried for like 4 hours straight about an ex-girlfriend that we had broken up 3 years plus prior. And I just finally reached closure with the end of that relationship from that point. 2 weeks after that, I tried a gram of psilocybin, so a bigger dose, but still not into like the trip territory part. And at that point, I had this realization that anxiety and depression that I'd carried with me my whole life were just a construct of the way that I chose to think about life. And that by just recognizing that, everything in life that had happened had brought me here, and that I had no, reason to worry about or try to like change the events of my past or anything like that, that just by accepting it, that I was free from all of that, from getting fired from the job, from the girlfriend leaving me, from, waiting until I was 30 to move to Florida. And I'd wanted to since I was 20. And, all of these things that I had just had anxiety about, or that would spark depression, just no longer did. And so from that point forward, it was like I could choose when I wanted to have a drink. I no longer felt like I was a prisoner to impulse. So my friends and I would go out to a bar. I would actually ask myself, do I want to have a drink? Not, I'm at a bar, I'm going to have a drink. And you know, it was just like a very small change in habit that allowed me to work back from there. And so that was October 22nd that I had, you know, that realization about the anxiety and depression. And the last time that I did coke was on October 30th. So it was just 8 days later, and I'm, you know, gearing up for a Halloween party that my friends and I are going to go to. I'm hungover from drinking and doing coke until 3 a.m. the night before, and I, you know, dump out a bag of coke and I'm doing a line, and I pass it to the next guy, and I'm like, "What the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't even really like this. Like, I'm only doing it because this is what I've done for the last 10 years to fit in and make people like me and yada, yada, yada. And if I continue doing coke tonight, going to continue doing coke tonight until 4 a.m. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to feel like shit. I'm not going to be productive. I'm, you know, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I'm not doing this anymore. And so I just stopped. And, you know, there were urges for maybe like a week after that. You know, I got cold sweats and things like that. But every time that the urge would come up, I'd ask myself, do I actually want to do this, or is this just habit because I haven't been productive today at work and because I feel like I need to pick me up, right? Like, or why am I actually doing this? And every single time it was, oh no, I don't actually want to do this. It's just habit. And so I just stopped, and I haven't had an urge to do coke ever since then.
Wow.
I've had a gram sitting in my bedside drawer for the last 3 years, and I haven't touched it. And there's been no urge to touch it.
And how long
So,
ago was that?
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been kind of a cat and mouse game with myself. But there's been no cat, all mouse.
Or no mouse, all cat, one of the two.
Yeah, no desire, you know.
Yeah, that's insane, you know. And did you so psilocybin, did you find a higher power? Did any of that help you through, or was it purely willpower and psilocybin?
Yeah, well, so it didn't really start as, you know, having a higher power type influence, um, but I did gain that connection along the way. You know, it was November 13th of almost a year, almost 3 years exactly. November 13th of 2022. Uh, that I
3 years tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, that I received a message, and the message essentially said, "Okay, dude, so you recognize now that you're good, you're safe, you've got, you know, a good job, a good community, a good head on your shoulders, you've got the ability to take your life in any direction you want to take it. Now, help other people." And so that was the first message that I received, help people. And so when I got back from this really big life-changing weekend that the book kind of centers around, it was, okay, how do I help people? And the primary way that I, you know, realized, or, you know, got the download of how I was going to do that was to write my book. And so for probably like a year after that, I'd be like, okay, I want to continue to make progress. I want to continue to do things that make me feel like I'm making a difference for people. I want to help. I want to help. I want to help. I want to do things. And the message that I just kept getting was just keep writing. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I want to do something. Like, please, like, life needs to get on. Just keep writing. Okay. So I just kept writing and just kept writing. And eventually, I, you know, rediscovered my love for fitness in a very major way. I'd always been, you know, someone that worked out, but, you know, through my addiction years, it was, you know, kind of like working out here, drinking and partying here, you know, rest of responsibilities here, you know. So eventually, you know, it tilted into, oh, working out here, abilities here, bullshit here, right? And so just by taking out the bullshit allowed me to really focus on what I really wanted to focus on. And, you know, a big part of that was writing for a while. But then once the book kind of came into vision, it was, okay, now it's time to attack what I can do physically. And so, you know, I started to get into doing races and things of that nature in November of 2023, or actually December of 23. And then in February of 24, I had a breakdown point where, you know, I had started a new job. I thought I was on the right path. And I had this complete breakdown moment where am just bawling, crying at the end of the St. Pete Pier. And I look up at the stars and I connect with God really for the first time, really for the first time where I recognize, what this voice is and like what the conversation I'm having actually is. And in that moment, I'm told, dude, I've sent you intuition your whole life and you've chosen not to listen. Are you ready to start listening? And I said, fucking yes, just show me. And I'm there, please. Like, I cannot be in this terrible mental spot. Like, just show me. And he's like, all right, I got you. Quit your job. Like, okay. So I quit my job 2 days later. I got my personal training certification. I started Get Psyched Fitness, and started doing a bunch of different things, things that led me down the right path to be able to speak at conferences like I did this past weekend, right down the right path to meet my wife, which was just an incredible experience of meeting my wife, and down the right path to do things like running this 100-mile ultra marathon. And it's just been a really fun ride of, just following a calling that I've felt to do things that truly excite me and truly make me feel like I'm making an impact for people. And it's been an incredible ride.
That's freaking crazy. I know so a marathon is 23 or 26 miles, right?
26.2. Yeah.
So basically you did 4 of those all at one time.
Yep.
How long did that take you?
23 hours.
That's insane. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm glad you did that for yourself. I'm not going to say never. It's just, I don't foresee that in my cards. But how did you prepare for that?
I mean, dude, so, it's a really crazy challenge, right? Because it's a big thing. Obviously, there's a physical aspect to it, right? And so I did a lot of training running. I got up to as much as 60 miles a week, although I got shin splints like 3 weeks prior to the race and wasn't able to do any running in the 3 weeks leading up to the race.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'd done a good bit of running. I put in, probably like 400 miles training over the 3 months leading up to the race. And, my body has been something that I've honed for a long time. I've been into physical fitness since the time I was 12 years old. And I've really made that a big part of my life, my whole life. Like if you saw photos of me, you'd be like, oh, goddamn, look at this fucking dude. But, so I've got a really, really, really strong base of strength. And so that really helps carry me through things like this where other people's bodies might wear down. That mine is very strong and very capable. And so
It's built for running?
No, it's not built for running.
Really?
It's built, yeah. I mean, I'm 5'8", 180 pounds. So I've got a lot of muscle on me, yeah. So really not built for running. Like if you looked at me, I don't look like a runner. Like I'm like 30, 40 pounds heavier than other runners at my size. So yeah, it's kind of fun. I also do strongman and powerlifting and things of that nature. So I'm just a multifaceted type of athlete. But yeah, that, and then just nutrition is huge, making sure that your body has the right things to fuel itself along the way. And then really it all just comes down to mindset. It all comes down to knowing that it's going to suck, but knowing that you've got a mission and just to keep going. There's levels to it, and I had a friend that did it with me who's 19 years old, and he completed it in 33 hours and 33 minutes. So it took him, an extra 10 hours and 33 minutes to complete. And I tell him, like, I admire you because you suffer much more through it. For me, I was the fastest finisher who had never done 100 miles before. So there were 27 other people or 26 other people who had never done 100 miles before. And I was the fastest of those 27. I was 6th overall in the race, under 24-hour first time 100 miles, like a major achievement. So, all things that I'm really proud of. Yeah, but like my friend Gianni, who did it with me, like he's learned to suffer much more, and for me, I was kind of going into it expecting that suffering, expecting that like, oh my God, this is terrible. But really what it just turned into is, no, I'm super capable. Like if this is a major challenge for other people, it's not that for me. It's a big challenge, but it's not that. Give me 1 second, Jay. I really need to go to the bathroom. Are you able to pause this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Take
thanks,
your
man.
time. I mean, shit, I can talk about other stuff. As we pause here, and I might even hit the pause button. Who knows? Now I'm talking to myself. But I'm glad everybody is tuning in to listen. If you're out there and you're listening, I am proud of you. I just want to let you know that we do recover out loud. We do recover together. And, don't ever think that you're alone. You don't have to be alone unless you want to be alone. And John right here is showing you that all things are possible. All things are possible. I mean, he did 100 miles of running in 23 hours. That's nuts. Who else is going to do that? Not I. I'm not even going to give it a shot. So, and John's back.
Not today. Maybe tomorrow you will, though.
Maybe no, not tomorrow either. I don't have the, when you say 100, I think Forrest Gump automatically just keep running, and I don't have the urge to just keep running.
It does help when there's a finish line. It helps when you know that there's that thing that you're working towards, and you just keep going until you reach that mark. It feels like it's never going to end, especially when you're at mile 60, 66, and you're like, motherfucker, I still have 33 more miles to go, 34 more miles to go.
I'm not even halfway there yet. Oh.
Yeah.
And you just did it this past weekend?
Yeah, it was on Saturday. I finished Sunday morning at 4 a.m.
At least you had a nice cooler weekend to do it in.
Oh, it was actually a little bit warmer. It was 82. So it was pretty brutal. There was a stretch that went across Tampa Bay, and it was 10 miles straight with no shade at noon. So that was pretty brutal. Yeah.
Sun beating down on you, no wind.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That would have been okay, let's just say awful. We'll just say, the things that we put ourselves through in addiction, probably no way compared to what you've just gone through was no comparison to what you've been in, as an addict.
Well, and that's, I was kind of trying to think about how to draw those parallels, and it's two totally different styles of suffering, because the addict suffering is, you're suffering so much internally, but trying to put on a show for other people that you're okay and that you're confident and that you're awesome and you got it covered. But like inside, you're screaming, but you don't know you're screaming, right? It's
you're silently screaming. Yeah.
All of this is just like putting up for you to be like, no, I got this, right? And it's like a false confidence when, something like I did, I went into it expecting to hurt, expecting to be screaming internally and externally and be, just so deep within myself and deep in this like depressed mode of like, motherfucker, why did I choose to do this? When, really what I got was just insane confidence. And, it's crazy to put myself through that and come out with that type of realization of just like how strong I am. But the suffering is just very different, because it's chosen suffering. And I mean, they're all chosen suffering. But you don't feel like it's chosen suffering when you're in addiction because you don't recognize that the problem isn't the drugs, right? The problem is why you're using them. And you really don't get to that point until you're able to actually take a step away and self-analyze. And, I'm sure that you can resonate with that. And I'm sure a number of your listeners can resonate with that, is that, it feels like this like inescapable void. For me, it was I'd been drinking for 15 plus years, doing coke for 10 years. And like, it just felt like this thing that was always a part of life and that I didn't have the ability or the desire to get out of. And once that switch was flipped for me, with the psilocybin, it was just like, oh, why would I ever want to go back to that? Like, there's no desire whatsoever for me to go back to that. And, I feel bad for so many people that I've talked to. Like my best friend, was in jail for crystal meth for 6 months. My brother was in jail for crystal meth for a while. Like, it's really tough, like hearing those stories and like understanding what like AA and NA and those processes were like for people, and just knowing that I had such an easy transition period from my life's a complete fucking mess to I have my life together. And if it feels it feels like I've kind of like circumvented that whole like real suffering part of it. And it's a wild thing to be just be so deep in problem and then to freaking snap my fingers and be out of it.
I know it's getting a lot. It's freaking, I've got a few people that call me on a regular, and some of them, call it at the most inopportune times. And I've got my phone on silent, but certain things just still ring through, and it's like son of a gun. So I apologize for the interruption.
Oh, good, brother.
But so on psilocybin, is it a
Psilocybin.
psilocybin?
Psilocybin.
Psilocybin. Well, thank you for that. On
Mhm.
psilocybin, what is the process of getting on it, and what is like the treatment process? Is it like a once a week thing? Is it and do you do like formal type of meetings, or is
Yeah,
it you just do it?
yeah. So I coach people on how to use it myself. And so, the people that I work with, we generally do a 6-week coaching program. That's 4 weeks of just really getting to know you with a introduction to microdosing. And so the way that the doses are laid out with psilocybin, at least in my own practice, is that a microdose is typically around a quarter gram of mushrooms. Like standard dose slash social dose, like if I would advocate for people to use it, at a party or at a concert or something like that, would generally be like a gram to a gram and a half. And then over 2 grams is where you start to get into the real real self-analyzation, self-analytical stages of the psilocybin usage. So, anything over 2 grams is where you start to get into that point. And so when I'm working with people during that 4-week kind of introductory period, we'll do microdosing, and that'll allow them to kind of start to get little breadcrumbs of things that they could use to help where they are, right? To figure out the things that are limiting them, to be able to self-analyze in a different way and determine what's important to them. And then after 4 weeks of getting to know each other, meeting on a weekly basis, talking through things, then we introduce a high dose psilocybin session, which is typically about 3.5 grams. And the point of that is to trip. And if it is done correctly, it can produce very, very, very deep insights for people to be able to follow from that point forward. And then we have 2 in the 2 weeks that follow, where we take what they've learned through their experience and help them to make changes moving forward in a positive way. And so, it's a 6-week program in which, you're microdosing throughout, but then doing one large dose session at like the 2/3 point. And for a number of people that I've worked with, that is enough for them to get the answers that they were looking for and to be able to implement the changes that they want to make and be able to move from that point forward without, any, need to revisit the medicine. Most people like to, because it's like, it's like shaking a magic 8 ball, right? And you say, okay, magic 8 ball, what can I work on today? And it says, oh, well, here's your list of things that you can do to make yourself better. Go have fun. I'm like, okay, I'll go follow that. And that's what I do for myself. It's probably every 2 to 3 months. I'll do a large dose session myself, and that helps me get really clear on, what's going right in my life and what's going maybe that could need a little bit of a redirect in my life. And so, it really helps from that standpoint, just to get the answers that you're hoping to get and be able to dictate which way to move in your life.
So once you do the dosing, is it like a guided thing? Somebody's there all the time to make sure
Mhm.
you're okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We do it in a very controlled environment with nice comfy bed and pillows and stuffed animals and
Lots
uh,
of water.
yeah, music playing, water, eye mask covering their eyes, whole box of tissues. So when they're crying their eyes out, they've got something there for them.
That's awesome. I mean, I've never been interested in it, but it sounds like it works for, I've been hearing more and more about it. So I know it works, for the people that are doing it or using it as a form of a recovery or therapy. I know it works. I know it works for PTSD. I know it works for trauma. I
Hmm.
know it works for, you're telling me it works for addiction. So all forms of recovery to me are absolutely fantastic. And the more knowledge that we can put out there, the more options there are for people, the more options people will take, you know,
Hmm.
for somebody to have good experiences along with bad. I'm sure there's some people that have bad experiences and we'll talk down on it. You know, one way's not everybody's way,
Hmm.
you know? So I appreciate you coming up here and setting me straight on the topic of psilocybin. Now tell me about this book that you wrote.
Yeah, man. So the title is Your Mindset is Your Reality. It takes the reader through my whole life, including, reaching rock bottom, the development of my problems, and the introduction of mushrooms, and what allowed me to get out of my own head and start working towards a life that would be better for myself and for the people around me. And so, it's available in print and on audiobook. It's on Amazon, it's on Apple Books, in audiobook. And the response that I've gotten from people is, first and foremost, that it's a really well done book. They really enjoy reading it. It's really easy to get through. So, love that. Means that I crafted a really good story that people will actually enjoy the story aspect of it. So that's positive. And that also it's really helped them, connect with themselves in some type of really deep, profound, beautiful way. And so, there's so much, so many different demographics of people that have read my book, from fathers and mothers to teens, and people who are struggling with addiction, people who have never struggled with addiction, and it's just been a really beautiful response that every person who has read it has told me that there's something that they've really connected with from my writing. And so I really find that to be beautiful, that something that I poured 2.5 years of my life into crafting has come out to make the type of impact that I was hoping it would.
That's awesome. And once again, where do you pick that up at?
Amazon is your best friend. It's also on Apple Books for audiobook.
Awesome. And so you've gotten good reviews on it.
Absolutely, man. The texts that I've gotten from people who have read it are just so touching. I just need to really be better at asking them to actually write them on Amazon.
Can you please leave a review?
Yeah, seriously.
And tell me more about Get Psyched Fitness. Where's it at and where's it located, and how do somebody that's interested get a hold of you?
Yeah, man. I mean, so the easiest way to get a hold of me is through my personal Instagram, Johnny B, JohnnieBe, Johnny B. But Get Psyched Fitness is getpsychedfitness.com. We're based here in St. Petersburg, Florida. The king and queen of Get Psyched Fitness are yours truly and my lovely wife, Thansha, aka Baby T. And we have converted our garage into a gym. We host classes at a park here in downtown, and otherwise do personal training, mental health coaching, and encourage people to find the best version of themselves, whatever that means for you. So Get Psyched Fitness, and reach out to me if you want to make your life the most incredible you've ever imagined.
And this is all things that you've done and started after quitting and being in recovery.
Correct. Yep.
So what do you do daily on as self-care other than working out? That's a lot of self-care. What do you do daily for your self-care and your recovery?
I mean, it's all multifaceted, I mean, the working out's a major aspect of it, but like, I'm just so in touch and in tune with my body. I'm hyper intentional about what I put into myself, from a hydration standpoint and nutrition standpoint. from a movement standpoint, weightlifting, running, yoga, biking, so on and so forth. I meditate regularly, maybe not on a consistent schedule, but I'll typically find time throughout the day just to sit with my thoughts and be alone for a minute, 2 minutes here and there, and just kind of be with myself. And otherwise, just mindfulness, trying to pay attention to the way that I move my body, the way that I interact with people, the words that I say, and just be present in everything that I do.
And Brendan, one of the burning questions I've got is psycho or science. Yeah, the mushrooms still illegal considered? Are they considered illegal, or are they becoming more and more less mandated or less of a crime?
Yeah, so I mean, it's still a federal Schedule 1 drug, which is absolutely ridiculous.
It is. I agree.
But they are being legalized in different states and cities around the country. Here in St. Petersburg, we actually just had the Canadelic conference, which was this past Sunday, which I spoke at. And by the time this episode is live, you'll be able to see that that speaking performance on YouTube. So I'm really excited to be able to share that. But we actually had that conference here. There is a cannabis and psychedelics conference, Canadelic, and they were selling mushrooms, LSD, MDMA there. So, things of that nature are considered so benign, in terms of the way that they impact people in society, that I think people are just, learning to turn a blind eye to it and say, live and let live.
Yeah. I mean, it's becoming, I come from the first state that legalized the cannabis. So, Colorado is the first state that actually legalized cannabis. That's where I come from.
Love
you
that.
know? Yeah. Hey, that's where I grew up. I grew up in that area too, Boulder, Colorado. Let's go Boulder.
Hell yeah, brother.
Known for something other than CU football. But yeah, so I think that a lot of people are scared because it is still technically illegal, or less legal, I should say. I think that frightens a lot of people off. Do you ever find that? Do you find the same thing happening or no?
Yeah, of course. I was talking to somebody the other day that was like, I was telling him about psilocybin mushrooms, and he's like, "Well, I know about the mushrooms that all the drug addicts would do." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, those mushrooms, but
Those mushrooms.
let me tell you why you're wrong." Yeah,
Well, as a drug addict, I never was addicted to weed or freaking psilocybin mushrooms. So
yeah,
there's that.
Yeah, and if you are, your life's probably in a pretty good place. So
Yeah. It'd probably been a whole lot better than where I was at on methamphetamine. Let's just be real.
I probably wouldn't have been doing the shit I was doing on Go.
Probably wouldn't have sent me to prison for almost 20 years. I probably would have been in a whole lot better spot, at least headspace, and yeah, probably would have been a whole lot less of an asshole than I was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude, they just really show you how important it is to be a good person, and that's like the most beautiful thing. And it's something that the US government really robbed us of back in the 70s when they made these things illegal, is that psilocybin and LSD and MDMA really show you how important it is to be a good person. And that's the heart of it, is that we are all one in this planet. And you and I are no different. We're just a different conglomeration of cells and atoms that have come together, right? But we're all part of this consciousness. And they really show us how important it is to be a good person, and to be good to the people around you, and be good to other people and other living beings. And it's just an amazing thing to have that realization and to be able to live with that knowledge.
All right. Well, if there's one last and final question
Hit
on
me.
this podcast, if there's anybody listening, I know there is, if there's anybody wanting to take away one thing from this, what would it be?
Yeah, man. So my transformation of being where I was to where I am, it started with a vision, right? And I had to ask myself, is this the life that I want to live? And at the time, the answer was no. And I said, okay, what is the life that I want to live? And I got very, very, very clear on what that looked like for me. And so From that point forward, every decision that I made came down to asking myself, is this decision a vote for the person that I was or the person that I want to become? And every single time I chose to make the decision to vote for the person that I want to become. And it really is that simple, is that if you can get hyper clear on exactly what you want your life to look like, what you see yourself doing, and you just start acting like that person, eventually you will become that person. Proof.
That's awesome. More proof that we do recover. We recover out loud. Life is possible outside of addiction. You know, start
Mhm.
living, quit existing. Life is possible outside of addiction. And so thank you, John, for coming up here and sharing your story of hope. And like I said, again, hope stands for hold on, the pain does end. You
Heard
know,
that, brother.
and I do too. It's one of the best acronyms for any type of word that I've ever heard. You know, in recovery, I honestly believe that we all have to have hope. You know, whether it's mental
Yeah.
health, addiction, whatever you're going through, just have hope. Just have hope.
That's it. You know, whether it's addiction or whether it's a 100-mile race that you hope the finish line's out there somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, and I'm going to let you go. And you know, that is Rock and Recovery for this episode of Rock and Recovery. Thank you, John. I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story of hope. And I hope more people get a hold of you because of this.
Appreciate you, Jay. Be good, brother.
Yeah, you too. I appreciate you.